Greetings, everybody. This is Trendane. I just figured that I'd throw together a quick how-to on how to play WoW. Now, a lot of people are like, well, dude, I already know how to play WoW. Then this video isn't for you. With Cataclysm only about a month out as of the day that I record this, we're probably going to see an influx of a lot of new people. A lot of people that have never played the game before are going to start, not necessarily flooding in, but, we're definitely going to see a few. So I thought I would make this this how-to on how to play WoW, and I figured, okay, WoW-To is a nice, stupid, corny title. I figured I'll go with that. So that's who this thing is for. And we're not going to cover a lot of the more detailed aspects of this is, the damage, this is the combat rotation that you want to use in this particular instance, or this is how you play a feral druid. I'm not going to, this is the talent tree that no, I'm not going to do anything that is that detailed. For that, there are plenty of other much better resources for people to look into than me, because I really don't know that much about this stuff. But one thing that I do fairly well is teach people how the basics of the game work. So I figured, okay, I'll make this video. So one of the first things that you have to decide is what kind of game do you want to play? How do you want your gaming experience to go? You have several different options when it comes to different types of realms that you want to play on. Let's take a look over here. You've got now this actually shows that I have quite a few characters on these various things, but let's we'll focus on this for right now. Let's go with some of the newer servers that have recently been added, which is why they are listed as having new players. So we're going to go with Uldum ultimately. But for types, if you wanted to sort on type, you could. The different types of servers that you have, the different kinds of realms, are normal, which is also referred to as the PvE servers, or the player versus environments. There's PvP, which is player versus player. There's RP, which is mostly for people who want to roleplay, and there's RP PvP, which is people who like to roleplay but also like to do the player versus player stuff. It's an interesting twist. For this particular thing, we're going to be doing the PvE, or normal server. But it's important to remember that on a PvE server, like, you go into a village and some guy says, we're having problems with these goblins, can you go over and kill 6 of those goblins and come back and I'll give you some money for it. So you run over, you do the quest, you come back in, he gives you the money, and off you go, and you get some experience for it, and you continue doing more and more quests and slowly level up and gain new skills and spells and what have you. With a PvP server, you get the same quest to go over there and kill some, goblins and whatnot, and while you're over there, another player comes along and stabs you in the face, and you are a little bit surprised if you didn't know that was coming up, because you didn't realize that you had accidentally chosen a PvP server. The thing is that on a PvP server, you are constantly flagged. Anybody from the opposing faction can attack you at any point. And so you need to be careful which of the servers that you go on to, because if you don't want a PvP style gaming experience, you definitely need to stay off of those types of servers. But if that's the kind of thing you're looking for, and I would encourage people to try it just to see what it's like. You can do that on a normal server. You can flag yourself temporarily, and I'll explain how to do that in another segment. So for right now, we're going to go with PvE, or normal. In this case, we're going to join Uldum. Now, when you select a server on which you want to play, you probably don't come directly to this particular screen. You probably go to a screen that looks a lot more like this. Now, what this is the character creation screen, and it kind of randomizes every time you come back here. For example, if I go back and come back in again, well, it's still her, but that's kind of surprising. It doesn't normally do that. So we'll go back, and we'll go back in again. See, now it's a female Tauren Death Knight instead of a female Forsaken or Undead Warlock. Anyway, so you have a bunch of different race class combinations that you can go with. Every race has their various advantages and disadvantages, most of which are discussed here. Every class has their advantages and disadvantages that are discussed here. Which one you want to play depends on what kind of a role you want to take on. In the case of different characters, for example, there's tanks, healers, and damage classes. Now, a tank, their function is to generate tremendous amounts of threat and keep enemies focused on them. This is mostly in a group or party or a raid situation, the tank's function is to keep the enemies focused on them, keep them attacking them, so that the damage classes, like druids, mages, warlocks, hunters, rogues, things like that, can then come in and, just do all kinds of damage and burn that enemy down and kill them. Meanwhile, the healer's job is to keep everybody alive. Now, the problem is that the tank, they have all different kinds of skills and everything for generating tremendous amounts of threat. But if, like, your damage classes aren't too careful, if they're not paying attention, or they're doing it wrong, they will do so much damage so fast that the monster suddenly considers them a much greater threat. That's called stealing aggro, or stealing threat, or something like that. A couple of different ways it could be referred to. Now, if you do that, then that means the monster's going to come after you, because you are much more dangerous to it than the tank is. That can be a problem. And healers don't exactly get a get out of jail free card with that either, because let's say some monster is trying to kill the tank, and this healer keeps healing them all the way back up to full. That is going to piss that monster off to no end, and eventually is going to tell the tank, tell you what, kiddo, you wait right here, I will be right back right after I tear that priest in half. And so you wind up having what is called heal aggro, and you've just completely pissed the monster off. So you need to be careful. Everything is about balance and keeping everybody, whatever your role is, you got to make sure that you do your job correctly, so that you don't overpower what somebody else is trying to do. So once you've decided what role you want to play with your character, whether you want to be a tank or a healer or a DPS character, which stands for damage per second, then that'll give you a much better idea of what class and race you want to be. Now, different classes can only be taken by certain races. For example, Tauren cannot be mages and warlocks. You can't do it. Humans cannot be shaman or druids. And depending on which role you want to play kind of determines which character, race, class combination you're going to be doing. Now, let's say, for example, you wanted to make a Tauren warrior. Okay. So you've now decided that you want to be, you've got your race class combination, you've got your race, you've got your gender, you've got your thing. Now you get to adjust what you want it to look like. Now you can either click the randomize button down here, and it'll literally randomize all of the various things, or you can adjust these individual sliders if you want to. That's not a bad look. It's got kind of that caramel mocha look to him, but I don't like the horns. So let's go with those. I like those horns a lot better. Okay. Now you've decided what race you want to be, what gender you want to be, what class you want to be, and you've got yourself looking the way you want to look. So what do you do now? Well, you name yourself, obviously. You can either click on randomize until you come up with a name that you think looks good. Now the problem is there's a specific list for each server that it pulls these names from whenever it does it, and the problem is that sometimes that list gets exhausted. So you click on it, it says, well, I recommend Hanu, and you say, okay, do it, and it says, no, the name's not available, and you're like, well, then why did you suggest it? It can only get so smart. So you either keep randomly picking names, or what you do is you come in and you put in your own. Let's call this guy Lopi. Let's make him a druid, because that's a little more fun, and it's not because I like seeing a bull in a dress. That is not why. And so you go ahead and click accept, and you come back here, which was the screen we were on before, but we didn't have the character and we didn't have the background. Now, once you do this, you can either double click on the character's name, and if you have more than one character on the server, they'll be listed here. You can either double click on this, or you can click on enter world, and you'll go straight in. The first time you do that, though, you will trigger what is called the racial intro cinematic. Every race, humans, gnomes, Tauren, undead, what have you, each of them has a little intro cinematic that plays with a voiceover that explains kind of where they came from and what their general outlook is, and what their current situation is. The voice actor who did that particular, well, all of them really, was Earl Bowen, and he also did the voiceover for the Wrath of the Lich King cinematic game opener, where Arthas gets up out of his throne and goes and raises that dragon from the dead. Really awesome. He's the voice of the king that's talking to his son. But he also, and some people don't realize this, he was the psychiatrist, Dr. Silverman, in all 3 Terminator movies. So it can be kind of fun to listen to that. Anyway, I'm not going to play the cinematic because, well, I want to cut down on the length of this video, honestly. And you guys can look at it, on your own, depending on which race you take. And I would encourage you to look at them all. Go ahead and make one, character for each race, just at least long enough to look at the intro videos, both before Cataclysm and after Cataclysm, because they're going to change a little bit. And then once you've made the characters and you've seen the thing, you can go ahead and delete the characters if you don't want to hang on to them. But I would also encourage you to try a little bit of variety, see what different things you can get into. Now, that's going to do it for this particular segment. In the next segment, which I plan to entitle Segment 2, because it's kind of an original sort of title. We're going to be covering the user interface, general orientation on that, just a few of the game options, like the music's too loud, where do I turn it down, things like that, and some of the beginner tool tips. And that'll be in segment 2, and I'll hope to see you guys there.